Good morning, everybody. You ready to kick off FCA TechNet? Yeah, all right. Why'd they put me up here first? For exactly the reason that just happened. It won't be the last, I promise. My name's Seth Bennett. I'm from CyberCom. I'm from the J9, also known as the Cyber Acquisitions and Technology Directorate. They don't let me out much. The boss isn't here, otherwise I wouldn't be. You'll find out why shortly. My intentions are to interact with you, so let's see what happens. I'm hoping you'll ask questions along the way, interrupt me constantly, and if I don't know the answer, I'll go find the answer. Sound okay? All right, let's see what happens. Today we're going to talk about JCWA, Joint Cyber Warfighting Architecture. Clicker works. Okay, so who in this room, by show of hands, has heard of JCWA before? That's what I thought. How many people have heard of JCWA for more than 5 years? All right, a few of those. How many people have worked with, been associated to, or written policy for something to do with JCWA or one of its programs? Or you guys can't ask any questions. Holy moly. Okay, how many people are here from a OUSD or joint staff environment and you're part of my oversight committee and you're just here to see if you can stump me? Oh, no, nobody raised their hands. Pretty smart. All right, how many's a foreign spy trying to get me to say something classified? All right, we're safe. Nobody raised their hands on that one. So, okay, I don't know which one of those last two makes me more nervous, the oversight guys or the spy, but let's find out, okay? Okay, again, interrupt me, raise a hand, stand up with the mic, whatever you got to do. I think they're recording this, so try to get to a mic, but if you don't, I'll just repeat your question. Sound good? Okay, here we go. Let's talk JCWA. Uh-oh, it's 8:15 in the morning. I'm about to give you a history lesson. Okay. We can't go forward without at least understanding how CyberCom got its acquisition strengths and powers, because it's not as recent as you think. So let's look back here, starting with fiscal year 16. The NDA came out and said, hey, CyberCom, you're not even a combatant command yet, but we're going to give you limited acquisition authorities. $75 million, that means you can't do any major acquisitions, mostly procurement stuff. And we'll let you have it until 21. Furthermore, we'll give you about 10 positions. So they identified about 10 billets that needed to be a part of this, and of those, I think 3 showed up. So cost estimators never happened, a couple of program managers here and there, good stuff. But that's okay, we had a lot to assess, right? Next year comes along in 17, and they say, good news, you're now a combatant command. Okay, so obviously that consumed the staff, and wasn't a lot of JCWA stuff going on at that point either. All right, we get to 19, and they say, it turns out that 2021 deadline we gave you back in 2016 wasn't quite enough, so let's extend that a bit to 2025. And then in 20, they came up and said, let's clarify something. That $75 million limit we put on you, well, that really means not cumulative, or did that mean just over? Well, nobody knew. Nobody knew the answer. And so they had to update it in the NDA and say, no, we mean you can do it each year, $75 million, and you're okay. So did we have any more people at that point? Nope, still the same 3 people from 2016. All right, 2021 came along, and they said, let's remove all those limits. You've now become a combatant command, so you should have acquisition powers. Let's get rid of that $75 million ceiling. And it's permanent. You're now an entity. Go off and be acquisition. Go do this. Okay, got it. Notice the theme. Is there any more people at that point? Nope. So we got the idea, but even the original 10 haven't showed up yet. So, okay, 22 comes along, and enhanced budget control happens. All right, so now all the money that was going to the service cyber components is going to get funneled through CyberCom. Okay, so that means CyberCom goes from managing about $800 million a year to $3.3 billion, of which about 1.1 is RDT&E money, and that makes the J9 pretty excited, because they're supposed to keep a track of those things, right? So, okay, what do you suppose we've been consumed with pretty much since that point in time? Prepping and getting ready to handle all that money. So I can tell you right now, the J8 is really busy, and the J9 is just as busy trying to support them with cost, schedule, and performance for the programs we do have. So it's been kind of interesting, but I think we're going to get it done. And all right, so 2023 comes along, NDA, and it says, you know what? We've been talking about this JCWA thing for a while. Let's centralize some of these authorities. And so they declared in 23 that CyberCom would set up a program executive office. So that's the point of the J9. So they said, go build a plan. Go tell us how you're going to build the PEO and how you're going to build JCWA on the way forward. But again, you guys have heard about JCWA for a long, long time. So we'll talk a little bit about what we have and what's next. All right, did you survive the history lesson? You're still with me? No one's asleep? Everybody's got coffee? Not a lot of sips of coffee going on, and it's okay. Here we go. So what is this JCWA thing? How many people in this room have seen that diagram on the left before? Over and over and over again. Okay, yeah. I got a new one in here. We're going to test you guys and see if you like it, but this is where we'll start, okay? So JCWA is a system of systems. Why does that matter? For all the acquisition guys in the room, I'll repeat it. A system of systems. That means not a program of record. The acquisition guys will get that. But it's a system of systems with programs of record underneath it. And so is it a giant weapon system? No. Maybe one day. But today it's just a system of systems. It's really the giant tool where all of the cyber, offensive and defensive, are supposed to be conducted. In a perfect world, JCWA would be the one-stop shop. You'd arrive there, you'd get the tools you need, you'd get trained for an operation, or the defensive tools you have at your fingertips, and you'd be able to put together the plan. You'd be able to go deploy that plan as an operator. You'd be certified and managed as an operator. That's what JCWA is planned to be, what's supposed to be, and what it is a lot of right now, but not quite yet. So, questions on the first slide. We're going to go through each piece of it. Okay. All right, let's talk unified platform. How many people in here are familiar with unified platform? A few of those guys. Okay. I'm supposed to talk up here. You guys feel free to chime in at any point in time and add to it. I don't mind. Okay, so unified platform. Let's keep it simple for those who've never heard of it before. If this were a giant cell phone, this would be your data storage on the phone. It would be where all your data would go. Okay, so if you walked into the iPhone store and there was a 65 gig and the 128 gig version, which one would you buy? Oh, come on, you know which one you'd buy. You'd get the big one, right? Got to have all that space you need, right? So yes, we've got a whole lot of data storage, and everything's supposed to go inside of unified platform. It becomes the infrastructure baseline for all of the big data and the big data platforms. So they should filter all that information in here, and we should technically be able to go look in there and find trend data, variations. We should be able to put together all kinds of imagery and views. Make sense? All right. Questions on unified platform? You guys want to add anything? Chickens. Yes, sir. Go. You got it.
Each service has its own. You
got loud. Yeah.
Each service has its own cyber command. How does this JCWA affect those as their own sort of operational commands? Is there a move to integrate them more fully?
He just said each service has its own cyber component. And so how does this play and interact with those? It is literally fundamentally and the reason why JCWA exists. So JCWA at CyberCom interacts daily with those service cyber component commanders. And so those teams sit in the rooms and actually their tools are part of what makes this up. The reason why we're talking about JCWA today is because that history you saw where CyberCom was developing and coming along, the services didn't sit still. They knew cyber was a challenge, and so they each went out and developed what they needed for their services. And so those tools are actively what these are. This unified platform, as you can see at the bottom right, is an Air Force PEO that currently runs that. That Air Force PEO and its tools and components are part of JCWA.
Each component's cyber command, from dictating its own policies, procedures, and such, they still own their own anthill, so to speak, but all the capabilities are combined to build this.
Yes, sir. So he's highlighting the authorities lane. So let's reiterate, right? What occurred was we became the combatant command. So at that point, the service cyber components fell underneath us. Then EBC occurred in 2021, and then all the money came to us. And now we're distributing the services money. So yes, they have their own authorities, their own focuses, and their own requirements. However, as any combatant command scenario, those would flow through the combatant command who would help set priorities with them, define those requirements in the acquisition world. And so we're up here, they're definitely below in their own entities with their own tools, but we're the centralization, we're the integration point as JCWA. That work? Okay. You guys want to add anything? Okay, I'm seeing if I can get them warmed up. Right now, what we'll say openly, how many tools is this question? How many tools is underneath the platform? Underneath unified platform or just JCWA as a whole? I couldn't tell you how many apps and how many tools they operate and put in their own software factories. The number is not something I have handy, but it's a lot. And something we'll discuss is they have their software factory, so does everybody else. Something we'll talk about as we go through integration. So there's a lot. And you can imagine they build them with their thoughts and their needs and their requirements in mind, not an integrated JCWA. So we'll talk through how we're going to help fix that and unite that. So,
well, sir, I can add to that. So there's dozens of applications that sit on the BDPs in unified platform. But if you look back to the slide that he had previously dealing with the JCC2, a lot of those applications come from the JCC2 that sit on the BDP. So they utilize the data that's in there to populate the dashboards that you would see as applications for the BDPs tied to unified platform. They kind of merge together as one.
Good. Okay. All right. Let's move to command and control. He kind of referenced as well. That's why they're next, because they're integrated, right? So joint cyber command and control. Let's keep to the simple analogy, even though there's a lot of smart people in this room. It helps me translate. So if the data was all stored in your phone in unified platform, this would be the screen. This would be how we view all of that data. These guys will build the dashboards, the automations, the front face. So say you wanted to know if your trainers, people doing the training, and your operators were ready. Are they qualified? Well, you're going to need to have that data stored in unified platform, and you're going to need to have an interface to look at that. And that actually happens once a month at Cybercom, as they will sit in front of the Cybercom commander and they will say, hey, how is our readiness level? And they pull data out of UP and storage areas, put it in front of JCC2, and they see dashboards and data points and trends and changes, and it's a beautiful interface. And that creates all kinds of automations so that it can trigger when certain things happen. Something fell below a line, let's create a warning or a highlight. So it's the interface to all that data. Make sense? Okay, I'm getting thumbs up from the guys that know. That means I didn't mess that one up. Any questions on that one? Okay. Okay. Sensors data is what the label is, for a reason. This one causes a little bit of challenge. Does Cybercom do sensors? Not really. They do sensor data. So that's an important difference, because while we do the joint cyber hunt kits, we actually build the kits that the operators will use when they travel out to other areas. That is a sensor, and that is one under our control, and that's that program shop you see at the bottom, the PM sensor shop at Cybercom, and they absolutely manage that. But beyond that, Cybercom really doesn't do sensors. They just take the data from all of the services sensors and ingest it, manage it, prepare it for view, help them do the trend analysis. And so that matters, because a lot of times people will come and show up at Cybercom and say, hey, I need to put some sensors on this thing. What are you going to do about it? Hey, I have a requirement. Go put sensors. Cybercom doesn't do that. So DODN, our sub-unified command, has their own sensors, and they do their own DODN area networks, own DODN areas of operations, and they put their own sensors on. Those sensors ingest into their big data platform or whatever storage area that they particularly use. We'd love it to be big data platform, but sometimes it's not. And then we ingest that into UP and find ways to display it. And so sensors data, not sensors. Don't go away. You'll get me in trouble if you go away and say that Cybercom does sensors. People will call me and fuss at me. You guys, that makes sense? But I mean, everybody understands a sensor, right? So in the phone analogy, we'll keep alive, that'd be equivalent of your camera or your fingerprint reader or your smartwatch, right? So it's just who's sensing, who's doing any form of data out there on a network and pushing that data into a central storage location, big data platform. Any type of sensor. It could be the ACAS scans that are being done at every military base. It's sit in there so you can have the data and you can study it. You guys are all smart. You're just, placating me. I appreciate that. Okay. All right, we'll go to the next one. You ready? All right, weapons and tools. All right, so the program shop at Cybercom is called Joint Cyber Weapons. So this is what builds all of the cool tools to go out and do. So if a trained operator were going to go out on an ops mission, they would assess the area, decide what the networks needed, and they would say, these are the types of tools I need. And they should be able to go to the Joint Cyber Weapons world and say, let me look at the catalog. I'm going to need one of these tools, one of those tools. I'll prepare one of these. And they should prepare their package and be able to go forward with those weapons, ready to fight in that cyber battlefield. Well, if you want to develop those, this is where you come. So the operator will come and say, I need these. A defensive operator will come and say, I need this. It'll go into the requirement cycle. It actually is submitted, and Joint Cyber Weapons goes off and begins building those tools using agile methods as fast as they can. So this is the spot where we develop their own environments. Joint development environments being worked right now so we can unify the development worlds so that we can all say together, no matter what service you're from, because other services have been doing this for a while and they got some great tools. Bring them together, capitalize on them. Joint Cyber Weapons is where that it's all unified. Questions on that? Still making sense? Okay. All right, training. So we've mentioned a couple of times, you got to have a trained operator. They've got to be qualified. Because they are operators, they must meet the qualification standards. And it's been a high point for Cybercom these past few years, and it still is. To the point that every month they sit and discuss who is trained, who is qualified, are they maintaining those qualifications? Well, this is the tool set that does that type of training. And it's not just a handful of CBTs, computer-based trainings. It's the status level of their qualifications, their maintenance. It's an environment that will simulate entire enemy fields, just so that we can go off and say, what would happen if? Put a trainer in front of a computer, simulate the entire battlefield, and say, how do you deploy this particular weapon? What would you do if the enemy did this? That is all part of their training, all part of their separate environment in order to get them ready to be qualified to go out to fight the battle. And PCTE actually does that and maintains that environment. Questions on that one? Yes, sir? It's purely operational. So he has 8140 requirements. And so no, at this time they're focused on JCWA and its tools specifically. And so that no requirements are in there to do a broader than just that. So, okay, any other questions? All right, here we go. All right, access. This was interesting. So in the cell phone analogy, this would be the operating system and the cell towers. It's kind of a stretch. It spans two in that analogy. If you need to be able to get into JCWA, we need to be able to manage who can get in and what level of access that you need, right? So this is where that is maintained. If you need to be able to interact and interface with a tool, you need a front face to be able to look at. If you want to go look at one of those screens, you need to be able to access the operating system in your phone to go do that. This is that front end, the access component, and the ability to reach out to other networks. And so, as you can see, run by an Army PEO down at the bottom. And this is really what all the operations stack on top of. It's the way they interface. Anybody have any experience with JCAP and the access? You guys got anything you want to add? Nope, they're giving me thumbs up again. Okay, this is uncanny. They just must be frightened. All right, he's thinking about a question. You got one? By access, you mean JCWA as a whole, right? Yeah. Yes. However, it's definitely by exception. It's one of those where they come in and say, I want to use it, can I? And they kind of assess, not because we're not prepared to share, but because it's not as far along as we'd like it to be. So that means that those that come in need to understand the limits of what it is, what it can do, and what it's going to do in the future. And so it doesn't mean we're not open to the concept. It just means that they may come in thinking it's a well-oiled tool and we don't want to advertise that it's perfect for their situation. But they say what they need, we go assess and say, hey, yeah, I think we can help with that. Come on in. Absolutely. Okay. Going to the next one. Okay, so that's JCWA. That makes perfect sense, and you guys know everything about it now, right? Complete experts. What do you think of this new visual? Weird, right? So here's a weird one. If you zoomed in, it's the accurate and correct as-is architecture for JCWA. It actually starts in the center with the 6 domains. There's 3 classifications and 6 domains, and spreads out and shows you the enclaves, the containers, and all of the tools. So obviously it's really small, so you'd have a real hard time doing that right now. But we've got it blown up so we can look through it. We recognize that what is JCWA has been an ongoing question for quite some time, and so we're trying to work through how to visualize and show to the outside world in a way that makes sense, right? So without these detailed connecting lines, I can get away with showing it to you at this level because nobody really knows how it's connected, but I can tell you that it starts in the center and spans out, and it's accurate. And there's about 56 tools out there on the outer edge of different varying. There's about 11, 12 enclaves and 6 domains. And so you can see the different services that we're all interacting with and the program offices that do their portions. So this is actually JCWA. Yes, sir? Divest and accelerate was his question. Yes. So as we're going to walk through here in a second, what's next for JCWA? Because I think we've just set up, this is what we know it today. It's split up amongst a bunch of services who've been doing this for a while. We've got to integrate. So the entire impetus of our way forward is, where in the world are there inefficiencies? And so we're going to walk through a few of those. And you know there are, and not at a knock of anyone, because they built what they needed for their particular service, and now we're tasked with the concept of integrating. So absolutely opportunity for efficiencies all over the place. Okay. Again, you guys are experts in JCWA. We could stop right here and you could go ahead and give the brief, right? All right. Let's go to the next one. Yes, sir. The Marines and the Navy are actually part of the conversation. They just don't, they're in all of the requirement conversations. They're absolutely the tool sets and some of the underlying architecture they guide and lead. It's just they don't have a program office that currently does one of the main programs. But there are tool sets and apps that are built by both Marines and the Navy that are absolutely in this mix and part of this conversation. Regular interface with them. So, all right, next slide. Okay, so remember the history lesson, right? So I won't go through it again, but you can see, again, that we are not as old fogies in the acquisition world as we thought, right? It hasn't been very long that we've gotten these acquisition powers. So the real question is, aren't we fully integrated? And this JCWA thing you guys have been hearing about for years and years and years, we should be way farther along, right? I mean, every meeting I go in starts with the why in the world haven't you done that thing I heard about 3 years ago? Well, here's the acquisition history. So let's walk through just a basic logical image. That means back in 2016, there was JCWA the Dream. And at JCWA the Dream, we didn't have any people. We didn't have integrated requirements. We didn't have any funds. And we didn't have the authority. But we had a dream. We all talked about it. Lots of these guys in this room were there for those conversations. And then time passed, and we got a little bit better. And we understood the concept, and we understood why we needed to do it. And many people in this auditorium actually were part of the conversations as to what it should be. So it became more than a dream. It was a concept that we all shared. And as a result, a lot of the services were building their tools with the concepts in mind. Hey, it needs to be integrated, so I'm going to go ahead and build my Army or Air Force tool so that it will play. But the truth is, the integrated requirements weren't really defined in an official fashion. It was just kind of a gentleman's agreement about how things would interact. Still, there were no people to run PEO JCWA. There are lots of people at all the services running their programs, but there wasn't anyone at a high level at CyberCom saying this is how it should be integrated. The funds were all separately divided amongst the services, and they were working their requirements and doing what they needed for their service with the concept in mind. And then the authorities still didn't exist at the high level to do any form of integration. So still, even as soon as 2020, we were not in a spot where we could actually have integrated much except the concept. And so then we get to JCWA the plan, which is what's occurred. Is NDAA 23 comes along and says, you've got to establish the Program Executive Office. Cybercom's where it's going to be. Let's go do it. Well, that means that there's a lot of people that have been around for a lot of time and an idea of what JCWA, the dream, and the concept should be, and now they're all turning towards Cybercom and saying, I said it was going to be this 3 years ago, and I heard it was going to be that 5 years ago. And we're trying to make heads or tails and sense of all that with, as you can see, still not all the people needed to run a PEO, still not the funds. Now the funds at EBC have been redirected and aligned up at Cybercom, but we're not impacting the services in a dramatic fashion by taking all their money so that we can do this. We're trying to be logical and smart about keeping them on path and helping them be efficient with the way they go forward. But this is literally the first year of that. JCWA authorities? Well, we just got from Undersecretary of Defense ANS, we got just last year the Systems Engineering and Integration Authority, which in the acquisition world, an acquisition guy would scratch their head and go, what is that? Well, it doesn't really an official title, but it does mean that he, by he I mean the Command Acquisition Executive, Mr. Wynn at Cybercom, my boss, can actually define those engineering and integration components. He can say, I really think this background should be green. I really think the phone should look like this. He can say those things. However, they just go in the requirements process like everything else. They're treated with a high priority, but they just go in the requirements process. So he doesn't actually have acquisition authority of those Army and Air Force PEOs. He has acquisition authority of any of the Cybercom PEOs, so he can definitely define milestone decision authority and acquisition components for those. But if you want to reach over to the Army or the Air Force, it's a gentleman's agreement still. I really need it to look like this. And they were working pretty well. But again, it's slightly better, but not quite there. Integrated requirements, the J3 has defined the JCRB, the Joint Cyber Requirements Board. And so this is the first, I think, 6 months into this. They've gone through 1 or 2 iterations of their working groups. The service components come together, the users come together, the operators come together, and they define what their priorities should be. And they all make those decisions, prioritize those requirements, and pass them to the J9 so we can do that work. It's happening. It's just 6 months in. There's definitely some bugs to work out. There's feedback from those service components on how to make it better, and we're going to try to make it better. But we are, in fact, in an integrated requirements process and passing that around. So it's happening. But all that leads to that last line where it says, go establish the PEO. And so let's figure out how we're going to do it. There's that giant picture again. And there's at least all of the interactions, interfaces that I can find for all of the outside entities that are helping us do that. So even though there's JCWA in the middle, there you can see all of the interfaces and companies and tools and enclaves and styles that are being utilized. But what is PEO JCWA going to do? We've been saying it forever as a concept. It's objective, and what it can do is improve the collaboration across all those different programs. They've never really been integrated before. So while we say, why is JCWA not more integrated, ask yourself how many integrated requirements did JCAP or did JCC2 receive before today, before 6 months ago when they first set up their first integrated requirements. So we often fuss about why they aren't farther along, but again, from their point of view, no one's ever told them that they have to play with all of these officially in a requirement. So there's so many ways we can make it better. The baselines are different. The platforms are different. The enclaves are strange and can find efficiencies. Capability development. There's different development environments being used in every location. There's 6 or 7 development environments happening right now where everyone made it work for their service, for their tool, the way they needed to with what was available to them at the time. And so we, JCWA, have to find a way to create a joint development environment so that we can all play together, so that we can all have access to the same tools and shared apps across the entire architecture. All right, so this is what we're going to do. You believe me, right? High confidence. I can see it in your faces. High confidence. It's going to happen. All right, next slide. Don't worry, I won't go through all the details on here. But just to say, this is the laid out plan. This is just how we're going to get to the initial operating capability for what is PEO JCWA. In the meantime, the services are still doing their thing. In the meantime, they're still developing and delivering, but we're attempting to work on the programmatic outlook, the organizational outlook, and the technical outlook for what is PEO JCWA. And so that's what we'll focus on next. But in the meantime, I've got to show OUSD A&S, Acquisition and Sustainment, that we can do this, because they're not going to hand us milestone decision authority and acquisition authority over those programs until they believe that we have what we need in place to be able to manage those programs, to be an integrated PEO JCWA. So they're working with us right now and every day, and we've got to do a handful of things and provide it to them. Yes, sir. Billet growth? Yeah, so my next line is a hiring one on purpose. And so grow the team is the objective. We actually gained 52 billets from a 2018 preparation study, and they dropped those civilian billets on us just this year. And so there's 61 hiring actions currently actively going on in CyberCom J9 right now, where we're just trying to bring the people in. It's still not enough to be what JCWA IOC needs, but it's close. And so we can get to initial operating capability with that. We will need more billets to get to a full operating capability, no question. How we garner those billets is an interesting topic of discussion, which we'll rant on at the end if you want, but there's lots of different ways that could go. Don't have an answer for you yet on what's next. How do we get more than what we have today? We're all working it. We're all trying to do manpower studies and discuss that right now. But we've got to grow the team. And we've got to do these engagements and interact and show the outside world, more importantly, the other PEOs, what our plans are. Because if you're an Army or an Air Force PEO that's been doing cyber for a while, you know you're nervous and wondering, what are those guys up at CyberCom doing? And what is it going to mean for my PEO shop? We got to get with them and show them what the plan is and show them how we need them along the way. We're not trying to get rid of them. They've got to be part of the game. It's just really how can they transition to be part of a program executive office. JCWA 1.x. So the idea is that we've got to do integration steps along the way. So just because we're building the PEO and the personnel Doesn't change the fact that we've got to be able to do integration steps. So there's clearly spots that we've evaluated in that giant architecture where that's not efficient. That doesn't make sense. Why are there 2 of those? Why are there 6 of these? And so we're picking those spots with our lead architecture and trying to lay out when we're going to work on integration points. So if we get a list of 10, 12 areas, which will change constantly when we find a new one, as we walk through the user interactions, as we go through the how you deploy a mission, we're going to find a whole slew of why do you have to click in 6 different places when you really should all be getting it in one, right? We're going to find a lot of those the more we go. We're going to keep doing them systematically as we find them and find these points to make things more integrated. So JCWA 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 will be deployments on how to make things more integrated in the current system. And so then to get to FOC and to address a lot of the findings that occurred from the Defense Science Board, recent report that just came out for analytic superiority, they focused on JCWA and they highlighted a lot of things that we were trying to work through already. Is on top of just finding integration points in the flow of JCWA and that giant architecture, there's a lot of redundancy. There are service meshes and Kubernetes clusters all over the place that look very similar, but everyone's deploying their own. Understandable, they were independent, they were solving the problem they had at the time. It's not a bad thing, it's just now we're faced with, why are we running 6 or 7 different service mesh clusters when the truth is we could manage them all as a common runtime environment and create the JCWA common runtime environment and manage that in a central spot so that it can maintain its uptime and have its appropriate backups and not waste a lot of money, time, and energy, right? And so that's what the JCWA NextGen is supposed to be focusing on. It's making that common runtime environment all at the same time. But the purpose is to get to IOC, because if I can get to IOC, then we can convince OUSD, A&S, give us milestone decision authority, and that's a pivotal step to helping us shift the culture. So, all right, any questions on this one? Yes, sir. Yes, and so we've actually submitted NDAA 1509, actually said go build this PEO. So we actually put together, it's in draft and coordinating with A&S right now, here's the plan, and it covers programmatic, organizational, and technical. And in the organizational section, we have the actual structure we believe we need for IOC and the number of personnel in there. We've got the military-civilian mix. And the current CAE has a style of, his upbringing says it's about 2 contractors for every 1 military. That's his rough estimate. Doesn't have to be that. And so what happens is he's built the military structure for IOC and then just calculated out, therefore I believe I need about this many contractors spread in these areas. So we have an org structure for IOC. We have an org structure for FOC. And one of the things you've highlighted in the FOC to get to the next gen is we're going to align all the program offices to be value stream related. So, and our value streams are associated to the operational functional needs. So that's a software agile world, right? For those, so we're trying to align the program offices to meet that software agile value stream structure and make it all match all the way up to the PE structures and the money. And so what that means is we're going to have an 06 level PM that says OCO, Offensive Cyber Operations, and then underneath that is going to be all the 05 PM shops, which are the shops that are out there today that are going to ride right underneath it. And all the offensive cyber will be under one value stream and one PM office, and all the defensive and all the enablers or enterprise support will be under a third. And so we have the basic structure laid out. We have a rough idea of how many people we need or think we need. Now, to be perfectly clear, we'll need assessments along the way, because as we get more OCO requirements and DCO understanding, you can imagine we're going to go, well, we thought 20 could do this, but it's really going to need to be 40. That's going to happen, no question. But we have a basic structure to start. Okay. All right. Any more questions on this one? Okay. All right. So I partially went through this imagery already, but left side is the requires. So you can see the combatant commands and the services. You can see the service component commanders and the joint task force. CNMF, Cyber National Mission Force, is saying, I have needs. I want things. I need the tool to do this. So those enter into the J3, J6, and J7. So the J3 is the main owner of all the operational requirements. And they follow the JCRB process we mentioned before. So an operator says, I really need it to be this. And it goes in a list. And it's met in these working groups and these boards, and they decide on those priorities, how we're going to and what order we're going to go to and what priorities there should be. The J8 actually has the capability needs. So in the acquisition world, there needs to be a house. It needs to have this many car garage. So they're trying to write a high level, this is what we need. And you can see they interface with the Joint Staff J8 and their components of OUSD. This is what the nation needs. This is what the national security strategy says I've got to focus on. I need to build this house. So then you get the independent requirements from the users, and you get the overall capability needs, and you put it together, and you hand it to the J9 and say, J9, I've put all these together. I put them in a priority order. Now go pass this along to the programmatic structures and the acquisition authority and go do. And so you can see on the right all those overseers I was worried about hiding in the audience here or over there on the right. They're probably hiding somewhere now. And then on the left, we hand those out to any of the acquirers that are below us that need it for their tools. And so they're doing a lot of the work, but we're handing them the requirements so they go do that work. But it's just the overall integrated requirement structure that's been working for the past 6 months. Still got a lot to work out, but it's been working. Make sense? Yes, sir? Not only are they involved, the old JIO director was a former Coastie, and he's still sitting amongst us. Marquez, James Marquez. That name ring a bell? Okay, he recognizes him. They are amongst us. They are with us. They are interfacing. They are going to be a part of this. They're helping design it, and so they're amongst us. Okay, next slide. All right, so big takeaway for this one is right in the middle. Our point is deliver capabilities. So in the midst of all this grand scheme, we're talking about all these new hirings and new structures and PEOs. We have to deliver the capabilities. It is the fundamental. We must continue to do it. We can't stop. With the authorities we have today, which is just that systems engineering and integration authority, we're comfortable that we can do those program increments and help deliver those requirements and absolutely help the current program offices move forward to deliver the capabilities. We can get through these 1.x structures and make things more integrated. We can begin the work on NextGen to make the common runtime environment. We can do all those things. However, we still can't affect those PEOs, the Air Force and Army PEOs, beyond more than gentleman's agreement. And that isn't enough. It's working for now, but if you want the culture to change, if you want us to be truly integrated, they can't answer to two bosses, right? It's just a fundamental that we all know from coming through this structure. So we need that acquisition authority, which is why we've got to convince A&S that we can do this so that they can grant it to us. But in the meantime, we can do this, and we'll move forward and do capabilities delivery like we have been. Questions? All right. Okay, so this is actually the structure. I just kept it at the high level, so we're not going down to all the unreal, but this is actually the structure for IOC of PEO JCWA. And I couldn't get into grand details because I haven't actually sent that all the way back to Congress yet, so they weren't ready for me to put all the details in front of you guys about which billet is where, but bottom line, 61 hiring actions. And if you want to come work at JCWA, there's a link. There's some flyers over there. I got some flyers over here. I'm shameless plugging. I do not mind, because if you show up, then I don't have to build the slides and brief them, and that's exciting. Okay, all right. All right, you guys got any questions? All right, that was organizational, so let's see what we can do for technical outlook. You guys still with me? You need more coffee? Because this one starts to get nerdy. Okay, we'll keep going. But we've said it a million times. Services built components. They built tools. They built weapons. They've been handling their cyber needs in their own service cyber component. We've got to put those together and make them an integrated tool. And they operate very, very much like that because of the gentleman's agreement that's occurred over the past. We're just now getting those integrated requirements, so it's going to get even better, and we're going to find efficiencies. But right now, we're just stepping through those where to make it more integrated. A good example that we can give is the software factories. So if you go to each individual service right now, you can pull up their software factory and see amazing tools they've developed. But you can't get to the other software factory from there to see what the amazing tools they've developed. Just something as silly as that needs to be integrated, because if you sign into JCWA, you need to be able to go look at all the tools, whether it be a Marine, an Army, Navy. They should absolutely have them all in one spot so we can go find out how best to use them. That's what we're going to do in JCWA 1.0 is make those better. JCWA NextGen used to be JCWA 2.0. If you guys have been around, you probably heard 2.0. That's gone. It's all about NextGen now. I'm sure there was some politics involved in that, but okay, NextGen it is. But it is creating that common platform, that common runtime environment we talked about before. You can see the basic structure layouts there. There's an easy reason to take those service meshes and get rid of the 7 or 8 and merge them into one and manage them. It makes complete sense. But the big catchphrase is we must do analytic superiority. We must attain overmatch over our enemies, right? That is the overarching goal. That is what we've been told to do by the nation. And we definitely think we can do it because of all the amazing work that's been done so far. Once we integrate it, it's going to give us leaps and bounds. It's going to be great. All right, questions on this slide? I'll save you. This next one's really just a repeat of the other one. It's, again, capability delivery. I'm supposed to foot stomp. And it will be okay. So one of the concerns of the oversight world is you don't have a lot of people yet at PEO JCWA, so are you going to be able to do your capability delivery and be able to set up your PEO JCWA with who you have? Yes, because the services are doing great work, because we have the gentleman's agreement, because they're running it today. We're interacting, we're interfacing, we're still delivering. And right now the best thing we can do is give them integrated requirements so they all know how their next step and their next program increment is helping the overall integration while we build the personnel and put it together. All right, there's a few you can see of JCWA 1.x, just a smattering of what early on they've seen they want to go attack for integration. All right, questions on that? All right, takeaways, which should sound redundant because I've said them over and over again. But we got the acquisition authorities we have now. We need to get the next layer. Enhanced budget control just happened. We've done a lot of work on it, but it absolutely puts the power of the purse with the rest of this. And then getting the authorization to go stand up the program executive office, it's going to allow CyberCom to do these things. And we'll be able to prioritize, we'll be able to speed up integration, we'll be able to improve how the subcomponents interact and integrate, and we'll be able to standardize the design on the way forward. And we'll be able to all focus on a singular goal. All right, PEO JCWA will increase the functionality. It's going to happen. You guys seem a little more confident in your stares than when we started. I'm going to take that as a compliment. You believe me, right? Nope, there's some over here that don't believe me. All right, I'm opening the floor. What do you got? Hit me with something. Yeah, microphone back here in the back if you guys want to go. They want to make sure everybody can hear it. Anybody have a question? Yes, sir.
Yeah, to the extent that you can talk about it, it was interesting that very Cyber Command specific, which I applaud. But I also know that there has to be key governance and integrations with the agency. MDR access, up and down the stack. I mean, JCWA, we want to, on the back end, share everything we learn together. Yeah. And in the front end, out in red space, never see each other.
Yeah.
Simplistically.
Yeah.
So how is JCWA and NSA integrating for optimum mission outcome?
You sure you're not with one of my oversight bodies?
I used to lead a cyber component.
There we go. Okay, we knew it. It's a fundamental question that Congress put forward in 1509. They absolutely said, how are you going to do this with NSA? Of course, there's limits on how I can answer that question here, but let's see. What I can say is, this will get you in all. There's currently 26 CyberCom employees in the J9. So I just went through all of that. There's 26 employees. There's 26 NSA CMIP civilians augmenting us. So double my strength because NSA loaned me augmentees. They have a whole program they do with CyberCom where they lend them over. We double our strength because NSA loans us civilians. So while I can't go into details about how we're integrating, I can assure you we're integrating because I wouldn't be alive if it weren't for the fact that I had an NSA CMIPper sitting next to me where I can say, what do we do? And then they pick up the phone and call all the people with experience and knowledge in their areas, and we connect dots and put them together. What you really need and what Congress asked for was to describe how we're doing those interfaces, and that's the part I can't really get into. And even if I could and we were at a classified level, NSA wouldn't want me to get into it. And so in both cases, I assure you we are interacting with NSA. We are using what we can, what's legally allowed, and we're using their expertise most of all. So, all right, what's next? Another question.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I'm from the J3JCRB Secretariat. Where can I get these slides, or where can we get these slides?
You can have them. I will send them wherever you want.
Fantastic.
You just send me a note. I'll send it back to you.
All right, copy. That's all I have.
Okay. All right. All right. Old fogies have done this before.
They'll be available on the FCU website under the TechNet Cyber.
There we go. She's even more efficient. You don't even have to interact with me. They're going to give them out. Perfect. All right. I call them the old fogies over here that have been doing this for a while. Okay. All right. We did good. All right. I'm getting thumbs up from them. Come on, you guys got difficult questions. What you got? Anything? You guys want to come work and be a part of JCWA?
Say, sir.
Yes, sir.
RJ Welsh with ECS. Question for you. I know you talked about your integration with the agency. You know, a lot of the infrastructure right now has been built and funded on Title $50, right? But US Cyber Command's a Title 10 organization, right? So is there an appetite to build out your own Title 10 infrastructure, especially as we look at trying to migrate most of the stuff to the cloud?
Yeah. Here's how I'll answer that one appropriately. I'm an acquisition organization. I will do whatever requirements get prioritized and handed my direction by the J3. Do I know if they want to do that or not? I don't have a good answer for you. Do I know it's a topic of conversation? Regularly. But right now I haven't gotten a requirement that says go do that. And so it may mean that it's in the stack and just hasn't bubbled to the top. It may mean that they've decided that we're not going to focus on it right now. I'm not sure. But the J9 will take the requirement and go have the program world build that if that's what they need. Just haven't gotten it yet. I know there wasn't really an answer, but... Okay, what else? There's a Cybercom desk right over here. You guys want to go pick up some swag? There's flyers for what jobs are open and how you click buttons to go get a job. I am not above advertising. Help. All right, I'm going to back away if you guys don't have any more. All right, see you guys.